Chapter 1. The Choice. The night was supposed to be like any other. Alpha Aaron Montero had just finished a grueling shift at the hospital, exhausted but relieved that he had saved yet another life. The scent of antiseptic still clung to his scrubs as he stepped out into the cool night air, ready to head home. But fate had other plans. A gunshot echoed through the dark alley beside the hospital parking lot. Aaron froze, his heartbeat hammering in his chest. Curiosity, or perhaps foolishness, got the best of him. Slowly, he crept toward the source of the sound, peeking around the corner. A man lay lifeless on the ground, a bullet hole right between his eyes. Standing over the corpse, wiping the blood off his gloves with a handkerchief, was a tall figure dressed in all black. His presence alone was suffocating, his aura dangerous. Even from a distance, Aaron could tell this wasn't just any ordinary, you're a man. It was him, Enigma Carlo Delvis. Aaron had heard whispers about him from patients who had been caught up in underground dealings. A name that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dared utter it. He was no ordinary alpha. He was an enigma, a breed of alpha stronger, deadlier, and feared by even other alphas. Some said he had a heart of stone. Others claimed he had none at all. And now Aaron had just witnessed him commit murder. Aaron turned sharply, ready to flee. But before he could take another step, a chilling voice called out, "Going somewhere, doctor?" A cold sweat ran down Aaron's back. He didn't even hear him move, yet in a blink, Carlo was in front of him, towering over him with an amused smirk. His striking dark eyes gleamed under the dim alley light. But there was no warmth in them, only cold, merciless calculation. Aaron swallowed hard. Anything. Didn't see," Carlo chuckled low and deep. "Lying won't save you." Aaron's body tensed as Carlo pulled out a sleek black pistol, pressing it right against his temple. The metallic touch was ice cold, sending a wave of terror through his veins. "Such a shame," Carlo murmured. "A talented doctor like you, wasted just because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time." Aaron's mind raced. He had spent his life saving people. Was this really how it going to end? Alone at the hands of a ruthless Mafia boss. "But please, I won't say a word, I swear." His voice shook despite his attempts to stay calm. Carlo tilted his head as if contemplating. Then his smirk widened. "There's another option." Aaron dared to look up, his stomach churning at the wicked amusement in Carlo's expression. "Pick one." Carlo leaned in, his breath ghosting over Aaron's ear. "Either die by this bullet, or marry me to stay alive." Aaron's breath hitched. Had he misheard? Was this some twisted joke? "What?" he stammered. Carlo withdrew slightly, twirling the gun between his fingers like a toy. "I need a husband, for reasons that are none of your concern. Yet. You're an alpha, and a doctor at that. You'll be useful." Aaron shook his head in disbelief. "You're insane." Carlo let out a soft chuckle. "Maybe. But at least I'm giving you a choice." A choice? But was it really? Death or a forced marriage to a mafia boss? Aaron clenched his fists. This was madness. He didn't belong in this world of crime, power, and bloodshed, but at the same time, he didn't want to die. Carlo's patience was running thin. His eyes darkened as he pressed the gun firmly against Aaron's chest, right over his heart. "Decide, doctor, now." Aaron closed his eyes, his mind screaming at him, telling him to run. But he had no escape. If he refused, he'd be dead in the next second. His hands trembled as he finally whispered, "I'll marry you." Carlo's lips curled into a smirk of satisfaction. "Good boy." Without warning, he grabbed Aaron's chin, forcing their eyes to meet. "From this moment on, you belong to me. Don't even think about running, doctor." Aaron felt his world shatter. His fate was sealed. Little did he know this was just the beginning. Chapter 2: The Binding Vow. Aaron could barely process what had happened. One moment he was leaving the hospital after a long shift, and the next he had agreed to marry one of the most dangerous mafia leaders in the world. His mind screamed at him to wake up, that this had to be some nightmare. But the firm grip on his wrist as Carlo dragged him toward a sleek black car was all too real. "Get in," Carlo ordered, his voice calm, yet firm. Aaron hesitated, glancing around. The alley was empty, the streets eerily silent. No witnesses, no escape. Swallowing his fear, he slid into the car, feeling suffocated by the luxurious yet intimidating space. Carlo got in beside him, and the vehicle smoothly pulled away from the hospital, heading toward an unknown destination. The silence between them was unbearable. Aaron clenched his fists on his lap, his mind racing. Should he fight back? Could he escape at some point? Carlo, who had been casually checking his phone, suddenly spoke. "You're thinking too much, doctor." Aaron stiffened. "How the hell did he? I can smell fear." Carlo turned his head slightly, smirking. "And I can tell when someone's plotting something stupid." Aaron bit his lip. Of course, as an enigma, Carlo had heightened senses beyond a normal alpha. There was no point in trying to outthink him. Not yet, at least. "Where are you taking me?" Aaron finally asked, forcing his voice to stay steady. "To my estate. We're getting married tomorrow." Aaron's stomach dropped. "Tomorrow? Are you serious?" Carlo chuckled, clearly entertained by his reaction. "Why wait? My people need to see that I have a husband. The sooner the better." Aaron's head spun. This wasn't just about forcing him into marriage, it was about power. He remembered what Carlo had said before. "I need a husband for reasons that are none of your concern. Yet." And now he was starting to understand. Aaron was just a pawn in whatever game Carlo was playing. The wedding. The next day arrived faster than Aaron had hoped. He stood in front of a grand mirror in an extravagant suit, tailored perfectly to his frame. The luxurious silk and gold embroidery screamed wealth and power, things he had never cared about. But now they were symbols of his imprisonment. There was a knock on the door before a man, clearly one of Carlo's subordinates, stepped in. "Boss is waiting. It's time." Aaron took a shaky breath. Running wasn't an option. Not when armed men were stationed at every corner of the massive estate. He was completely at Carlo's mercy. The ceremony was held in a grand hall filled with high-ranking Mafia members and powerful figures. The air was thick with authority, danger, and something far more unsettling: curiosity. Eyes lingered on Aaron, assessing, questioning. He wasn't one of them. He was an outsider. And yet, the moment Carlo entered, all attention shifted to him. Dressed in an all-black suit, Carlo exuded dominance. He walked toward Aaron with slow, calculated steps, his expression unreadable. When he finally stood before him, Aaron's breath hitched. "You look good," Carlo murmured, loud enough for only Aaron to hear. Aaron scowled. "Go to hell." Carlo smirked. "I'm already there, sweetheart. And now, so are you." The officiant began the vows, speaking in a language Aaron barely registered. His heart pounded as Carlo slipped a ring onto his finger, a heavy, expensive band that felt more like a shackle. Then came the words that sealed his fate. "I now pronounce you bonded mates." Aaron's body tensed as Carlo's fingers tilted his chin up. Before he could protest, warm lips pressed against his. It was a kiss meant for the crowd, but the sensation sent a strange shiver through Aaron's body. Carlo's grip was firm, possessive, but there was something else. Something Aaron refused to acknowledge. When Carlo finally pulled away, his gaze locked onto Aaron's. "You're mine now, doctor." Aaron clenched his fists. For better or worse, he had just become the husband of a Mafia king. Chapter 3. The Unraveling Secrets. Aaron sat stiffly in the back seat of Carlo's car, his mind still reeling from the events of the day. The ceremony had ended, and with it, his life as he knew it. He was now bound to Enigma Carlo Delvis, a Mafia leader, a killer, and the man who had forced him into this marriage. The car pulled up to a massive estate, an architectural masterpiece of marble and steel, guarded by men dressed in black. The moment Aaron stepped out, he felt the weight of 100 eyes on him. Some were calculating, some curious, but most carried a silent warning. "Watch your step." Carlo placed a hand on the small of his back, guiding him inside. Aaron flinched at the touch, and Carlo chuckled. "Still so tense, doctor. Relax. You're not my prisoner." Aaron shot him a glare. "No, just your forced husband." Carlo smirked. "Same thing, isn't it?" The new reality. The estate was breathtaking, lavish chandeliers, polished floors, and walls adorned with expensive artwork. But no amount of luxury could make Aaron feel safe. He wasn't stupid. He knew this place was more than just a home. It was a fortress. Carlo led him to a massive bedroom. The king-sized bed, dark wood furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows made it clear this was Carlo's room. Aaron turned sharply. "I'm not sharing a bed with you." Carlo leaned against the door frame, watching him with an amused expression. "You are my husband, Alpha. You belong here." Aaron's jaw clenched. "This is a mistake. You can't seriously expect me to—" A knock interrupted them. A man entered, bowing slightly to Carlo before handing him a file. "Boss, there's been movement from the Vasquez family. They've heard about the wedding." Aaron frowned. "The Vasquez family?" Carlo nodded, flipping through the file before dismissing the man. Once they were alone, he tossed the file onto the table and turned to Aaron. "You're curious?" Aaron crossed his arms. "Not really." Carlo chuckled. "Liar." He grabbed the file and held it up. "This is why I needed a husband. There are people who want me dead, people who don't want me inheriting the throne. The only way to solidify my claim was through marriage." Aaron's stomach twisted. So that was it. He was nothing more than a bargaining chip in a dangerous power struggle. Carlo stepped closer. "But what makes this even more interesting?" He tilted his head. "You're an alpha." Aaron frowned. "And?" Carlo's smirk deepened. "I told you before, I'm not a normal alpha. I'm an enigma, stronger, more dominant, and I can do something that no other alpha can." Aaron felt an uneasy chill crawl down his spine. "What are you saying?" Carlo leaned in, his lips ghosting over Aaron's ear. "I can make you pregnant." Aaron jerked back. "What? That's impossible. Alphas can't, but enigmas can." Carlo's voice was laced with satisfaction. "That's why you were the perfect choice. If I produce an heir with you, it would be a bloodline no one could challenge. No one would dare go against me." Aaron's heart pounded. He had walked into this nightmare thinking he was just being forced into a marriage, but now he realized it was much worse. Carlo didn't just want a husband. He wanted a mate. He wanted a child. And Aaron had no way out. Chapter 4: The Growing Bond. Aaron sat on the edge of the massive bed, his mind still replaying Carlo's words over and over. "I can make you pregnant." It was impossible. Alphas couldn't conceive, at least not under normal circumstances. But Carlo wasn't normal. He was an enigma, a powerful alpha with abilities beyond reason. And now Aaron was trapped in a marriage that wasn't just about survival. It was about power, bloodlines, and control. The struggle for freedom. Days passed in a blur. Aaron avoided Carlo as much as possible, though that was easier said than done. The estate was heavily guarded, making escape impossible. He wasn't even allowed outside without Carlo's permission. Carlo, on the other hand, acted as if nothing was wrong. He remained composed, smirking whenever Aaron glared at him, as if enjoying the game. One evening, Aaron finally snapped. "You can't keep me here like a caged animal," he spat, crossing his arms. Carlo raised an eyebrow. "Why not? You're mine now." Aaron clenched his fists. "I'm not some possession you can own." Carlo sighed, setting down his whiskey glass. "You still don't get it, do you?" He leaned forward, his dark eyes piercing into Aaron's. "This marriage isn't just about me. It's about keeping you alive." Aaron scoffed. "Oh, right, because forcing me to marry you was such a noble act." Carlo smirked but didn't break eye contact. "If I hadn't, you'd be dead." Aaron faltered. "The Vasquez family, my enemies, would have killed you the moment they found out you saw something you shouldn't have. Marrying you meant making you untouchable." Carlo stood, stepping closer. "Now no one can lay a finger on you without starting a war." Aaron hated that there was some truth in his words, but it didn't change the fact that he had been forced into this life. A dangerous world. As the days passed, Aaron started to see the darker side of Carlo's world. He witnessed meetings where men pledged their loyalty, or lost their lives. He saw Carlo command power with a single glance, his enemies trembling before him. Yet despite his ruthless nature, Carlo never raised his voice at Aaron, never forced him to do anything. In fact, some days Carlo barely acknowledged him at all, and somehow that irritated Aaron more than anything. One night as he sat alone in their bedroom, the silence was broken by the sound of gunfire outside, a surprise attack. Aaron barely had time to react before the doors burst open, and Carlo stormed in, eyes blazing with fury. "Stay down, don't move." His voice was sharp, leaving no room for argument. Aaron's heart pounded as Carlo grabbed a gun and headed out. The next few minutes were a blur, shouts, bullets, and then silence. When Carlo returned, he was covered in blood, none of it his own. Aaron felt a strange tug in his chest. He had spent his entire career saving lives, yet here he was, married to a man who took them without hesitation. And still, when Carlo walked toward him, something in his eyes was different. He looked tired. Without thinking, Aaron reached for a cloth and gently wiped the blood from Carlo's face. Carlo stiffened. Aaron hesitated. "You're hurt." Carlo's lips curled into a half smile. "Not my blood." "I don't care," Aaron muttered. He was a doctor first, and despite everything, he couldn't ignore a wounded man, even if that man was his ruthless husband. Carlo let out a low chuckle. "You're an interesting one, doctor." For the first time, Aaron saw something different in Carlo's eyes. Not amusement, not cold calculation, but something softer. Something dangerous in an entirely new way. Chapter 5. Surrender to Fate. Aaron never imagined he would get used to this life, the grand halls of the Delvis estate, the constant presence of armed guards, the whispered conversations about power and bloodshed. But what unsettled him the most was his growing familiarity with Carlo. Despite his cold reputation, Carlo was surprisingly patient with him. He never forced Aaron into his bed, never treated him like a prisoner. If anything, he waited, as if challenging Aaron to come to him on his own. And that infuriated Aaron, because every day he felt himself slipping. The way Carlo protected him during attacks. The way Carlo watched him, eyes dark and unreadable. The way his scent wrapped around Aaron, making him feel strangely safe. He was falling into dangerous territory. A moment of truth. One evening, after yet another tense dinner filled with stolen glances and silence, Aaron found himself unable to sleep. The weight of everything, the forced marriage, the life he had left behind, the way Carlo made him feel was suffocating. He stepped out onto the balcony, inhaling the crisp night air. "Can't sleep." Aaron turned sharply to find Carlo leaning against the doorframe, dressed in nothing but his black silk robe, exposing his toned chest. His presence sent a shiver through Aaron's body. Aaron sighed. Too many thoughts. Carlo stepped closer. "About me." Aaron scoffed, but his heart pounded. "You're always so full of yourself." Carlo smirked, then leaned in, caging Aaron against the railing. "That doesn't answer my question." Aaron swallowed hard. Carlo was too close, too warm, too intoxicating. "I hate you," Aaron whispered, his voice shaky. Carlo chuckled. "No, you don't." His fingers brushed against Aaron's cheek. "You want to hate me, but you don't." Aaron hated how right he was. Carlo's lips hovered just above his. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, "and I will." But Aaron didn't say anything, because he didn't want him to stop. And that was all Carlo needed. His lips claimed Aaron's in a deep, hungry kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was full of pent-up tension, frustration, and something dangerously close to longing. Aaron melted into it, gripping Carlo's robe, as if it was the only thing keeping him grounded. He could feel Carlo's strength, his dominance, but there was something else, something soft, desperate, almost vulnerable. Before he knew it, he was pushed against the bed, Carlo's body pressing into his. "Last chance to stop me," Carlo whispered against his neck, his breath warm and teasing. Aaron's response was to pull him closer. And that night, under the dim glow of the city lights, they surrendered to fate. The confession. The next morning, Aaron expected regret, shame, fear. Instead, he woke up warm, tangled in Carlo's arms. For the first time, he felt safe. Regretting it already? Carlo's husky morning voice sent a shiver down Aaron's spine. Aaron sighed, tracing a lazy circle over Carlo's chest. "No." Carlo stilled, as if surprised. Aaron bit his lip, hesitating before whispering, "I don't hate you." Carlo chuckled softly, tilting Aaron's chin up to meet his gaze. "I know." Aaron rolled his eyes. "Of course you do." Carlo smirked, but then his expression softened. "Aaron." His thumb brushed against Aaron's lower lip. "I never expected this to happen. I thought I was only marrying you for power, but—" He exhaled, as if the words were difficult for him. Aaron's heart pounded. "But—" Carlo's eyes darkened with something intense, raw, real. "But now I don't want you just because I need you." His voice was low, rough with emotion. "I want you because you're mine." Aaron's breath hitched. He wasn't sure when it had happened, when his hatred had turned into something else, something deeper. But as he looked at Carlo now, he knew. He was falling. Maybe he already had. "I'll think I'm yours too," Aaron admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Carlo's smirk returned, but this time there was warmth behind it. "Then say it properly." Aaron rolled his eyes but finally whispered, "To love you, you possessive bastard." Carlo laughed, pressing a deep kiss against Aaron's lips. "I love you too, Doctor." Chapter 6. Bound by Blood. Aaron had never been one to believe in fate. He believed in science and medicine and things that could be explained. But nothing could explain this. Nothing could explain how an alpha like him was now sitting in front of a doctor, clutching an ultrasound report with trembling hands. Nothing could explain the tiny flickering heartbeat on the screen. A child, his and Carlo's. The truth revealed. Aaron sat frozen in the private clinic, his mind blank. "Congratulations," the doctor said, her voice gentle. "You're pregnant." Aaron let out a shaky breath. "That's not possible." The doctor smiled. "It is because of your husband's Enigma genes." Aaron felt the blood drain from his face. It was real. Carlo wasn't lying. He was carrying his child, an Enigma heir. "Does Carlo know?" Aaron asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The doctor shook her head. "Not yet. But I suggest telling him soon. Enigmas are extremely possessive of their mates, especially when they're carrying their child." Aaron nodded, feeling a mixture of fear, confusion, and something dangerously close to excitement. Carlo's reaction. That night, Aaron paced their bedroom, debating how to tell Carlo. The moment the door opened and Carlo stepped in, Aaron's heart skipped a beat. "You've been avoiding me," Carlo said, his voice low as he took off his coat. Aaron bit his lip. "I needed time to think." Carlo narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. "About what?" Aaron's hands instinctively went to his stomach. It was barely noticeable, but Carlo's sharp gaze didn't miss the movement. His body went still, too still. "Aaron." His voice was dangerously low. Aaron exhaled, deciding there was no point in hiding it. "I'm pregnant." Carlo's breath hitched. He stared at Aaron for a long moment, as if trying to process the impossible. Then, without warning, he grabbed Aaron's waist, pulling him flush against his chest. "You're carrying my child?" His voice was a mix of awe and dangerous possessiveness. Aaron nodded hesitantly. "Yes." A slow, predatory smirk stretched across Carlo's lips. Something dark and primal burned in his eyes. "No one will touch you," he murmured, pressing a possessive kiss to Aaron's temple. "No one will come near you without my permission." Aaron shivered. "Carlo, you're mine." Carlo's hand pressed over Aaron's stomach protectively. "Both of you are mine." Aaron swallowed hard. He had expected anger, shock, maybe even rejection. But instead Carlo looked at him like he was the most precious thing in the world. The possessive alpha. Days passed and Aaron quickly realized something. Carlo was even worse now. He was constantly around, making sure Aaron ate, making sure he rested, making sure no one even looked at him the wrong way. When one of Carlo's men stared a little too long at Aaron's stomach, Carlo pulled out his gun and shot the glass next to the man's head. "If your eyes land on my husband again," Carlo had said coldly, "you won't live to see another day." Aaron groaned. "Carlo, you can't shoot people for looking at me." Carlo smirked, pressing a kiss to Aaron's jaw. "Watch me." Aaron sighed, but secretly he didn't mind it. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't just a doctor. He wasn't just a forced husband. He was loved, he was wanted. And now he was the mother of an Enigma's heir. As Carlo wrapped his arms around him, whispering about how he would burn the world down to protect them, Aaron realized something. Maybe this wasn't the life he had planned, but it was his. And maybe he wouldn't have it any other way. Epilogue. A life worth living. The sound of a baby's soft cries filled the massive bedroom of the Delvis estate. Aaron groggily opened his eyes, feeling the familiar warmth of Carlo beside him. He turned his head, exhausted but content, and saw Carlo already awake, gently cradling their newborn in his arms. "Shh! Don't cry, little one," Carlo murmured, rocking the baby with more tenderness than Aaron ever thought possible from the ruthless Mafia leader. Aaron smiled sleepily. You're good at that. Carlo looked up, a rare softness in his usually sharp gaze. He's ours. Of course I am. Aaron let out a tired laugh. Ours. The word still felt surreal. He never imagined this life, being married to the most dangerous man in the underworld, having his child, building a family. Yet, here he was. And he wouldn't change a thing, returning to work. A few months later, Aaron stood outside the hospital, staring up at the familiar glass doors. I can't believe I'm back, he murmured. You don't have to be. Carlo's voice was firm as he stood beside him, baby Leo nestled securely in his arms. I can provide for you. You never have to work again. Aaron rolled his eyes. Carlo, I love my job. I'm a doctor first, remember? Carlo sighed, reluctantly handing Leo to their personal bodyguard. Fine, but if anyone so much as breathes wrong around you, they're dead. Aaron groaned. Carlo, we talked about this. Carlo smirked. No promises, love. Aaron shook his head, but he couldn't hide his fondness. Carlo was still overprotective, still possessive, but that was just who he was. And honestly, Aaron loved him for it. There forever. Life wasn't perfect. There were still threats, still dangers lurking in the shadows. But with Carlo by his side, Aaron knew he would always be safe. He had love, he had a family, he had a home. And as Carlo pulled him into a deep, soul-stealing kiss right in front of the hospital, Aaron realized this was his happily ever after. And it was perfect.